If numbers, in case you're interested.
See, I have my number tab right here.
Steal my stuff.
Good evening, this is the Village Council Special Public Budget Meeting. Today's March 4th, 2019, the time 7:31 p.m. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same as provided by law with the schedule including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Newton, here. Councilman Seaton?
Here.
Councilman Voigt is absent. Councilwoman Walsh? Here. And Mayor Hache?
Here. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join us for a moment of silence in honor of the brave men and women serving the nation's armed forces and its first responders. Thank you. Public comments? None? All right. Get right into discussion items. Good evening. How are you guys?
Good, how are you?
So our first item this evening is the police department. And we have Captain Jacqueline, Chief Jacqueline Lucky, Captain William Russo, and Captain Forrest Langs here.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Heather, Bob, Steve. Just a little bit of a brief review. We were very fortunate that last year we didn't have some of the big cases that we've had in prior years, and we didn't have any of the major storms that we've had in prior years. But last year our biggest case was the one that I know we just gave some awards in front of council for, that hit and run, but that really did take the entirety of the police department as well. From the initial handling of the scene to once we had a vehicle description, every officer, I felt sorry for the people that had the matching vehicle because they stopped every vehicle that matched the description so that we could find the individual involved, and even including the signal department who came in the middle of the night in order to help us review some videotape in our quest to figure out that case. We were able to efficiently manage all of our mandatory training last year in order to minimize the cost impact to the village. We were involved in approximately 7,000 hours of training and about 400 hours just to conduct our junior police academy, all while managing to keep our overtime under the $380,000 that we were given last year. Providing we can maintain that hold, this will keep us at just about 6% of our total budget for our overtime budget, and most agencies average between 8 and 10%. In addition, we were able to get a little bit creative, and one of the things that we got in our capital last year was new raincoats. We have placed the order for them, but with everything changing, we were actually able to come in under budget for them, which means we are very close to being able to order our new winter coats as well, which is why this year in the Capitol you'll see winter coats, and all we need is $5,000, and we can order them for the entirety of the department. Some of my goals for 2019, one of them deals with redacting videos. With all of the Oprah requests coming up, it is very labor intensive and takes some very specific software in order to go through all of the audio and video from the officers' cameras. It is hours of work, and I would be looking at a civilian position to be able to help with this. That would also be able to add hours to our records room and potentially down the line morphing that into assisting with accreditation as well. We are also working with the fire department and emergency services on some tabletop exercises, and we just conducted our first joint training for active shooter with the fire department and emergency services and the rescue task force teams. For that, we also had people from other agencies that came in and assisted. We had Valley Hospital, we had the paramedics, so it was a nice joint venture. And then again, just continuing on attempting to hire additional officers so that I can get people back into the traffic bureau. That is one of the big complaints that people have. So adding bodies back to the traffic bureau, continuing to flush people into so we can prepare for the SRO position and maintaining that backup, in addition to the development of some community policing teams, which would help us continue the walking post, bicycle patrol, motorcycle patrol, and that high visibility presence in the CBD.
Does anyone have any questions?
I do. The training hours that you gave, those were mandatory training hours?
A lot of that is mandatory training hours. Some of the training, although technically may not be mandatory, it is still critical training to do, and some career development training as well.
And then the Junior Police Academy, how many hours was that, did you say?
Approximately 400 hours.
400 hours, okay.
And again, extremely successful. We are limiting it now. We have to cut it off at 100 kids. That's as much as we can manage on like a bus and a half in order to have enough adults to supervise. We have kids that have gone through, are now graduating from high school, which is fantastic, and it's just such a popular program.
And then the other question, in terms of staffing numbers to get that traffic happening, what's the timeline on that? Do you, if I understood you correctly, you said there's officer training and then you'll be able to get people back downtown. For the biggest complaint is obviously those traffic issues. If I see like twice a day people making illegal U-turns, double parked, I mean, I see people come up the street and just without even thinking, they just make quick U-turns to jump in a parking space. So did I understand correctly that there's some time before we get to that full staffing on that?
Yes.
Okay, and do we have an idea of what that timeline is?
So I'm looking at hopefully putting the first person in. We have one individual right now on field training. When he comes off of field training, that's going to be one of the areas that I'm putting somebody back into. For the community policing unit that I envision, ideally, if I have another 2 individuals to start to make a squad of that, it would be perfect.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. My question was going to focus on overtime, but I think you did a good job of explaining it, because I mean we've had some years where, like in 2016, it was $716,000, but we were short-staffed at that point, and the prior years, like 12, 13, and 14, it was between 285 and 218. So I was gonna say, if we, what do you see as a comfortable level of overtime, and how are we gonna get there? But it sounds like this 350 level.
I think is a very, again, that's on the lower end of it, but it's a very realistic number.
Okay, thank you.
Barring unforeseen circumstances.
Right, of course, I understand that. You can't predict the weather or people's craziness. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Walsh?
Thank you for coming in. So I guess
Could I just ask you to speak in the microphone? We noticed on the
sorry about
video that...
Sorry. So in our conversations in closed session regarding the entire police budget, because this has obviously been a topic we've been discussing on a regular basis. The question that keeps coming up is, the total budget, this budget, and also your capital. There's concerns that it's, difficult for the municipal piece to just keep going up and up. So I don't know, you guys didn't really talk about any cost-saving measures for the year. I don't know if you want to maybe broach that subject. cost saving in terms of running the whole department?
That's difficult. Obviously, we're always looking at the budget to ensure, I don't think there's really any significant changes in it from year to year. I think some of the biggest has been the overtime, which again, I think we always try to keep that as low as we can, and that is a battle. Things like our raincoats and winter jackets, I mean, those are 10 years old and just don't have either the thermal properties or the waterproof properties anymore. So we're not asking for things that we feel are unreasonable. And we have had some of that give and take. You know, some of the things that we're looking at, I would love to get a tracking system so that every piece of equipment is in a computer system and you're actually checking it in and out and it logs when there's a problem with it. It's something that we've been asking for years and just isn't realistic in our budget right now.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Just had a few questions. I know you mentioned the winter jackets, but I don't see the jackets included in the line item last year or this year.
Do you want to go through capital first before we go to that? Because it's in capital.
Oh, it is?
Right.
Because I see it on the operating budget as winter jackets, but...
I think we put it into capital, didn't we?
It's on capital.
Oh, it's in capital, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. One of the things that I saw here, maybe it's more of a question for Bob, some of the items from vehicle leasing, for example. It looks like it's a 23% reduction from last year to this.
Currently 5 vehicles that are in the lease program.
Right.
Including last year, I believe, was also a pickup truck, if I'm not mistaken. We had an additional vehicle in there. That's the reason for, we don't have it this year, so it went down. Should have gone down. But the leasing program is very effective. It includes maintenance on the vehicles, and it's a big saver. In the,
when I look at the...
Which line?
At the detail, 055,
Yes?
it shows 2018 at 70,000.
Yes?
This year 54.
Yes.
Decrease of 23.
Yes?
When I look at the detail of 055, it only shows 32,000 for last year. Top 55, line 55 on it.
Sheet 55? Okay.
Yeah, C55.
No, look at
On the
the,
front, it's lease.
the 2 columns under 2019, the 81 and the 54. The 54 is what the,
Right, but for 2018,
don't go by, I'm sorry, don't use 18.
this
If
is
you want to, if you want to look at what was actually spent for that line, go to the summary sheet, the second column from the right, 39106, on the summary sheet, first page.
It's after 029 on the first page, and then it goes lease. It doesn't call it 055 on the first page.
Right, it's on, you see it's under here. It's on a different line.
no, I see it here, but it's showing up as 70,000 for 2018. Where is 70,000 in any of the details? Because I see 32,000, not 70.
Not on the actual, though. You have to go to the actual.
On the supporting schedules, ignore the right column.
Right, okay. But
So
that's
go-
30, now we're talking about 39 or 30, what is that, cross it out?
That's how much was charged the account for the year. Actual cash paid against the lease.
Okay, but that doesn't tie into the 32 in the detail of the 70 from 18. Where's that, where do I see that?
I understand. The column that's on the right on the detail was the original 2018 budget. It doesn't tie into the
Doesn't
summary
tie in.
sheets. No, sorry.
Okay, and then there was... And the e-ticket, can you explain that again, please? The e-ticket?
That's the electronic ticketing that the officers use now. Every vehicle has it, and all of the parking enforcement officers have it. It makes it significantly easier, especially when you're writing more than one ticket. In order to have a repeat, that is a contract that we deal with. We have actually helped that company develop that program, and I think we have a meeting in another 2 weeks or so about trying to help sell that program to other agencies and us being a host for it.
And there was one item, the motorcycle equipment. I know we had a motorcycle donated, correct?
There was a motorcycle that was donated. It did need some work. It is not in the best shape. The officers use it sparingly because they're trying to make it last so that we can bring it to the big events. They would love to use it day in and day out, but that's where I keep asking for another motorcycle. And right now it doesn't have all of the equipment it needs. It doesn't have a radar on it. It doesn't have the modified computer on it. So again, they can really only be using it on specialized events as opposed to using it day in and day out.
Got it. And then for the SRO, where do we see the offset from the BOE? That'll be on the right side. That's it, thank you.
Okay, so now we'll go over the capital.
Tab 21 is where the capital is, and then tab 9 is the police.
As far as the vehicles, we have, I believe it's 2 new Tahoes, isn't that correct? That's correct. 2 Tahoes. We have body armor replacement and weapons replacement. We have less than lethal equipment, live scan, and rescue equipment. We have the portable radios, the car and body cameras, and the, what's the last one? What did I miss? Winter jackets. And then the last one is the vehicle barricades in the equipment. And then, hold on, sorry, it's not turning. And that's it, right? Wait, no, I'm sorry. Records window, bulletproof glass, recommended. Right. Then the air conditioning we're doing through the air conditioning overall project. Okay. And then 100,000 for the auxiliary station in the CBD, which would be the taxi stand. And so we're looking to, give them money to help renovate that. And then the last thing is computer equipment and servers. Oh, actually, that's Northwest Bergen Central Dispatch. I apologize. So that's what's being funded.
Questions?
I always, this thing about the vehicles. So the 3 Tahoes, are those now replacing other vehicles? What's the status? So could you just give us a little background on the Tahoes and what the year, what are we replacing?
We're replacing 2. We're taking 2 vehicles out of service, and that are older vehicles. I believe one is we currently use as a decoy car, and another one is I believe is car 13, which is our oldest Explorer. So we'd be giving those 2 up to replace with 2 new Tahoes.
Okay. 3 Tahoes, right?
2.
One was
3 was
cut from the
proposed.
budget.
Request for 3, and then we negotiated to 2. So went from 240 to 160.
Oh, okay, all right. Still all right. Okay, no other questions on that.
I don't have any questions. No.
No questions?
I don't know if I can ask the question. Is the shooting range question from closed session the other night?
Closed session. I mean,
Nothing's in this budget. So it would be a separate, if we were to do it, it would be a separate bond ordinance.
So then what is the,
That's the cost of using the Walbrook range.
Okay, then I can't ask about it, okay.
Are you talking about the big number?
Yeah,
Okay. Let's talk about the big number, Heather.
It's in the initial request, but it's not under recommended.
okay.
At this point, for the overall capital budget, that's not to say it won't be done, but it's just that that would be a separate bond ordinance if we
Okay.
move forward.
Nope. No questions, Jeff?
Okay, thank you.
You want to say something?
Hey, good night.
Jimmy needs some help. You can stay with me if you want.
There's nothing recommended, there's no action.
No, I know, but I wouldn't.
All right. Fires what? Okay, so our next budget is for fire, and this Chief Jim Van Gore is here to present it.
Right. Good evening. Well, just going to go over a couple of accomplishments we had last year. We responded to 3,504 emergency calls, and we conducted 3,293 fire prevention inspections. We purchased a new rescue truck to replace the 1998 truck. We hired and trained 2 firefighters to fill open positions created by retirements. We did a lot of community outreach. We hosted open house, fire prevention month, health, fire safety education classes, Sunday school drills, touch a truck. We hosted classes on leadership, fire inspector certification, firefighting, emergency medical technicians, active shooter training. We also were re-inspected by ISO, the Insurance Services Organization, and we were able to maintain our 2 rating, which is good because they do it from 1 to 10, 1 being the best, so we got a 2. We also got grants. We got one from FM Global Insurance to purchase computers for fire prevention, and also got 6 bulletproof vests and helmets from the county donated to us. This year, we're looking to hire 1 firefighter. We had somebody retire in January. We're going to continue to update the fleet. The rescue truck should be here in May, hopefully. We're still looking for grant opportunities, and we're looking to update fire prevention fees this year. We haven't done it since 2011. So we'll be bringing that to you in the next month or so. The budget is pretty much, as far as the operating, it's pretty much flat. The S&W, the salaries and wages increased. It's all contractual. But I look back and it's still less than it was in the 2013 budget. So 6 years later, we're still cheaper, if that helps. Any questions?
Thank you, Chief. I just had one question. Usually, good job on keeping your budget flat and under control for as long as you have. I appreciate that. If you could just help me understand compensation pay, because it was $60,000 was appropriated for it in 2018, but only about $8,400 was spent, and that's was a little bit higher than the $8,000 that was spent in 2017. So if you just help me understand.
That's an accounting thing. You're going to have to ask them over there.
Contractually, the fire department's able to purchase back sick days, correct, or vacation time. So that pay is charged to the following year. So this year was $55,000. That was paid in January 19 for the December pay for the prior year. Because if it hits in December, we charge it. It usually gets paid the following year. So basically, you'll see another charge in next year's budget.
And then that'll...
It's a wash, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. That's all I had.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
So I do have a question. So the inspections,
Right.
how often do you guys find stuff in the inspections? Or is it,
Violations.
is it cursory? Like what are you finding in those
We found
inspections?
1,900 violations last year.
1,900 violations.
So one place could have 5 violations, one could have 2, one could have, it could be as small as having an extension cord. Or a lot of times the emergency lights are out, or their fire extinguishers aren't inspected, or like the restaurants have to have their hood inspected every year. If that's not inspected, they'll get a violation for that.
And what is the timing that they get for,
I think it's 2 weeks,
they have 2
but
weeks?
they could ask
okay.
for an extension.
And this includes all the home inspections, or is that, did they change that with
No,
the
we still do the
inspection?
smoke detector inspections.
And
But we'll go there, we'll do the inspection. If it's not right, we'll tell them where to place it, and then we just go back. It's not
yeah,
violation.
it's not okay. And then the grants, did you get the grants through our grant writer, or were they?
Yeah, yeah.
They were through our grant writer?
Yeah.
And how many grants did you guys apply for? I'm
We
curious.
applied for 3. We applied for the FEMA
And you
grant.
got 2.
And we got 2.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, I shouldn't say that. We applied for 2 through the grant writer. The one through the county I applied on my own.
That's all I have.
No questions, thank you.
Great.
I have a quick question. So the
capital.
the two that were
Get out the
written,
door.
that you got through the grant writer and the one you did on your own, which of those did we get, of the 2?
We got the FM Global through the grant writer,
And
and we
then-
applied for FEMA with the grant writer, and I got the ballistic vest and the helmets on my own.
So that came to the, right, okay, sorry, you
Yeah.
said that before, got it.
And then, didn't you also get the one for the computers?
The grant writer helped me with that, the FM Global, that was the computer.
That was the FM Global?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so capital is what tab? 12?
Capital this year, we're asking to replace a 1994 fire engine. It's beyond its useful life. It's getting old. It's unreliable. It's hard to get parts for it. Typically, we try and replace them after 20 years. So this year, and it takes 6 months to do research and put the order in, then it takes a year to get it. So we wouldn't get it till next year.
Yeah, so not until 2021.
Probably the end of
Plus or minus,
2020.
yeah.
Yeah, probably the winter of 2020.
What took us so long to replace the Pierce then?
What's that?
What took so long then to replace the Pierce, the 1989 Pierce? Is that,
Pumper truck?
That was the rescue truck.
That was a rescue truck.
Yeah.
right, but when you say we tried to replace them after about 20 years, but that one was 1989?
That was, it was undersized when we got it, and we've taken on, since 20 years, we've taken on so many more jobs, and we've gotten so much more equipment that we just can't fit it anymore. And it was undersized, it was good for its time, but it's just not.
Houston co-op to see if...
Yeah, that's where we got it through.
But I'm talking about the fire engine that you're going to...
We will, yeah. Yep. That's where we got the last one, and then we got the rescue truck through Houston, and then we'll...
Yeah, by using the Houston co-op, we saved a lot of
Yeah.
money by going that route, so we might be able to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Is it absolutely necessary to replace this rescue truck? Or, I mean, is there any way you could get by for another year with it till next year?
The rescue truck we already did.
Well, that
was last year.
Fire engine, right?
Yeah, that one's we already purchased it.
Well,
It's being built. You mean the fire engine? Can we hold on?
Yeah, the fire engine.
Like I said, it takes a year and a half to get it. So if we did it now, it's already, what I figure it's a 94.
Yeah, so it's
So,
25 years old.
25 years old, yeah, so it'll be 26. It's just, getting tired. So, the problem is we didn't replace anything for 10 years.
Yeah.
So now we're trying to catch up.
Right.
Everything's getting old, and so, I mean, if we could do it right now, it'd be better.
Okay.
Rather than put more money into it or, try and keep it going.
So then after this is replaced, is there any other vehicles, like big ticket vehicles that you see coming up?
The next one would be a 2000, so we have time.
All right, so we have time, so we're not going to see anything next year.
Yeah, but no.
All right, thank you.
And then you also have the 60,000 for the
I was just gonna ask.
upgrade communication system.
Yeah, around the Willard School area, it's hit or miss. It's hard because it's almost down and to get to Central with the radios or to get to the repeater is up at the water tower. So I wanted to add another one at Willard School. We had a fire there last year, and we had a hard time getting out and you couldn't even talk to the fire engine that was right down the street because it wasn't hitting the tower. So they finally got the FiOS, or the fiber in, and it's all set, so it wouldn't be that difficult to add another receiver site to it.
And then the final item is the resurfacing the parking lot at 311 Glen.
Yeah, that parking lot hasn't been repaved. I've been here 33 years. It hasn't been done since I've been here. And we just did a whole drainage system in the back, so it's pretty beat up. The sides are all falling in, and there's big ruts where the engine pulls out. So we just wanted to redo it. And then the engineering department looked at it, and they wanted to put concrete curbs in because there's no concrete curbs and sidewalks in front of it. So that's why I think that the price is a little high. But it's to replace the sidewalks and the apron and bring it up to today's standard.
And when we bid out the train station reconfiguration, this was also part of the bid.
Oh, okay.
And so we've actually already bid it out, and then it's just a matter of having the funding in place. As long as the council approves it, then we can bid that, award that part of the contract once this funding's in place, if you agree to it.
Thank you.
And no other questions? Okay, great. Thanks.
Guess
All
you're
right,
done.
thank you.
Thank you.
Of the hot seat.
Village attorney. And I don't know what that is. So this includes the prosecutor, the labor attorney, as well as the village attorney, correct? Okay. And I don't know that there's any particular, what was the biggest jump? Right. The prosecutor is the biggest increase. My understanding is, and when Maria comes for her budget presentation, she's on her way. We can ask her about that, but my understanding is that we are paying a little more, but we are also bringing in more revenue into the court. And hopefully she has numbers on that, or at least estimates. Oh yeah, and it's also the tax appeal. So that's anticipated, it may go up, obviously, possibly.
So in our discussions with S&P during our ratings, they had suggested that we start to consider funding any tax appeals that occurred during the year. We've been very fortunate the last few years. We haven't had large impacts, but the way real estate's going right now, we might start to see a little blip in it. So we decided to I threw $75,000 in here. That number's flexible. It can probably go down a hair if we need to do that, but at least we're doing something, because then we start to put the money aside. So it's twofold. We're banking money in case we need it for the tax appeals, and we're satisfying S&P's review of how we manage the village. So I think it's a good thing. Just trying to get a sense of what 75,000 will get us. The actual spend was 375.
That doesn't seem right.
What, was that just admin cost? Was that the actual cost of one case?
That's probably an advertisement cost that went in there.
So, but do we know how much it costs on average for each tax appeal?
What do we have? So this year we had, for 2018, we had a larger number of refunds, probably about $1.6 million. That was compounded with the prepayments that we had for the people coming in December with the 21 million. So it's a little difficult to try and bifurcate that. But in talking to Mike Barker and his association, they're all in consensus that this thing is going to start to ratchet up just a hair. So, you know, I can look further into getting a number for you, but it's cloudy. It's not an exact number.
I think it's important that if we're expecting, you know, and again, I'm sure Mike has a number in his mind of what percentage of the existing parcels will file for an appeal, and then we tie that projection with what each case may cost. Because 75, I mean, that could be...
That's attorney's fees.
Yeah, but I'm saying, what does that get us? I mean, is that 10 cases? Is that...
No, I'll get you some more exact information on it.
Just to make sure we can prepare accordingly.
Sure.
And then doesn't Matt handle our tax appeals? Or am I missing something? Or does he handle all of them?
It could be just Matt. It could be other attorneys as we get involved. It depends on the type of appeal.
So
For the most part, he handles them.
So that, I guess I'm just confused, because that 375 on tax appeals for the 2018 actual, I think I'm just confused about that 75,000 and why that's in the line now, and I think that the same question was just asked. Did we not take that, like extract that amount out in the past, or have we not?
We have not provided for it as putting money aside. It's
Okay.
always been paid out of current operations.
Okay.
So now that we feel that might escalate a little, we're putting some money in the bank here to pay for it.
So we don't know actually how much in legal fees. We've never, I mean, I guess we do know. We could extract that information out and figure out how much that 2018 number should be, or am I, again?
Well, no,
It's usually like 500 to 1,000. If you've looked at Matt's bills, it's like 500 to 1,000.
Well, I understand that. I'm just saying that the total on that.
This 375 is probably an advertisement cost. It's not
Right, it
related.
doesn't belong. Right, I get
It's just
that. I
sitting
got
there.
that piece. So
Mike said like 250.
I guess I'm just wondering why we just haven't seen that line. I don't see that line there.
Because it's pretty consistent, it's pretty flat, and just, you know, it's wrapped into his normal
Right.
billings. So now, what I'm saying is that if this is going to start to climb, okay, we may want to bank it
Okay.
so that it isn't just Matt's fees, it could be other attorneys' fees that are going to be in here as well.
Fine, got it. Okay, understood. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions about that? Okay. So Maria Dorr, our municipal court administrator, is here, and she'll come and present her budget. 16. So Maria, we were talking about the prosecutor and the fact that we are paying more, but my understanding is that the revenues have increased as well. And I don't know if you have those figures with you, but if you do, it would be good if you could let us know what they are.
Yes, it has increased. For all of 2018, we handed over to the village $693,091 as compared to 2017, which wasn't a bad year in itself, of $622,549. So that was a pretty significant increase. Not only in the revenue do we see the difference, but our time on the bench is down by about 34%. So we're not really here till 10 o'clock all the time, which has really been a blessing for us. The other improvement that we've seen is, and I'll use the leaf trials as an example, because I think that's what everybody is most familiar with. If we had a resident come in and plead not guilty to a leaf violation, we were able to hear the case the same night and not have them return. And that was one of the biggest complaints that we got, that someone would come in here invest 2 and 3 hours of sitting here, only to find out that they had to return for a trial date and invest maybe another hour. So we were able to really cut that back. Of course, shorter court sessions also mean less police overtime. We've eliminated the position of the police liaison. So we went from 3 officers to 2 officers. And of course, just by way of not being here as late, that's cut down on that as well. We don't seem to have as many subpoenas that are in circulation. This time last year, I was close to 40. I'm at 11 this year. So that means it's that many less police officers that we also have in court. So we've become much, much more efficient in that, in addition to the revenue that's come in. Just to go over 2018, some accomplishments. That was a big one, trying to streamline that court check-in process. The other one behind you is our new video system for the jails, which we're in the last leg, and many thanks to Dylan and Jim O'Connell and his crew to wire this up. Hopefully, we'll be able to be up and running in about a month. So this means that we no longer have to transport prisoners from any jail in the state, which is a public safety issue. Again, it's police overtime, 2 officers to go down to Southern State Prison to bring somebody up here. We had this in the caucus room. It's been out of service for about a year because the lines that were required, I guess, are obsolete. So now we have a web-based system, and we'll be able to, obviously, Bergen County, which is where we'll hook into the most, but it just seems the last couple weeks we've had a need to go farther down South Jersey. So we'll be able to do all that in a public courtroom, on the record, open, transparent, which is ideal as opposed to over in the caucus room. So we're really looking forward to having that in full operation. We are on our top priority list for 2019. We want to overhaul our filing system so that we can completely vacate the storage room downstairs and maybe make that available to some other departments. We'll have all our records in-house up here. We caught up on all our distractions, so we're really in a great position to get that accomplished in the next couple of months. We are down a position. Deputy Court Administrator, our Deputy Court Administrator, Gwanda, has moved up and gone to be the Court Administrator for the Borough of Dumont. So although it's a personal loss for us, it's a great professional accomplishment for her. And I will share this with you during her exit interview because I have her permission to do this. I asked her what would be, besides what you liked the least about your job, what did you like the most about your job? And she said, working here, working in Ridgewood turned me into a professional. She said, I knew what I had to do when I got here. I knew all the brass tacks of my job. And this is really a credit to my fellow directors and administration and her interactions with their departments. She said it really made me a professional in how I'm going to do my job, and she really felt like that was something she could take with her. I just thought it was worth sharing with everybody because it really does say a lot. Although we started out talking about the increase in the revenue, there is a change in the paradigm going on in the judiciary where they are becoming less monetary focused, and they are going to caution municipalities and CFOs not to budget for court revenue and court income. This is basically as a result of the events that happened in Ferguson, Missouri in 2015, and it resulted in the New Jersey judiciary to take a good hard look at what our focus is in the court in terms of revenue as opposed to just delivering justice. So they did form a committee. The committee came out with 49 different recommendations. Their concerns were that there were excessive imposition of financial obligations on people, the use of bench warrants and license suspensions as collection mechanisms, which they wanted to kind of get away from. So to that end, the municipalities can expect this year to be cautioned as to not budget for that that's not going to be the court's primary focus. they will turn to, and my understanding is the recommendation is that they will turn to maybe a civil collection procedure, which will be completely automated. It will not involve the municipal attorney because they don't want to see the municipalities get an expense on that end. But it could be that issuing bench warrants for us and suspending people's licenses are going to be far and few between. That will negatively impact revenue, but they feel if they can turn to a civil means to get the revenue, the municipalities will get the revenue in the long run. But it's just kind of a way that the judiciary is headed right now. So that would be the not so good news.
Didn't you also mention that maybe they do community service instead of possibly?
Right, they want us to offer payment alternatives. We've been pretty successful in our collections, just kind of the way we do it here. They want us to offer payment alternatives to people such as community service, reducing the amount they owe for good reason. We do have financial hearings where someone has to show us a true inability to pay their financial obligation, but we do have to offer them a payment alternative, and that alternative could be reducing the fine and what they owe. So that is something that we'll have to keep our eye out. I mean, we're still going to continue what we're doing because we're successful at it, but it could be something down the future that we may see a little drop in that.
There's no capital for the court, so.
No. And there's really no big change, actually, over last year.
Was that a New Jersey ruling, or was that, you mentioned Ferguson, was that just New Jersey, or was that a national program?
It seemed to be, it seemed to have resulted in a number of court systems across the nation to look at what their focus is, and that their focus should not just be financial, and that the court should not be looked at like a cash register for municipalities.
So, and I don't know if this is going to be a question for you, or too bad the chief isn't here. So, is that going to impact how we do our job to make sure that people follow the law? You know what I mean?
Not at the...
Nothing's going to happen.
It's a great question. What it would result in, for example, is if I get a phone call that Wayne Police has got somebody on a warrant because they owe us $900 in fines. Do we let them go or do we put them in jail? Well, we don't run debtors' prisons. So it's going to be let them go and tell them to be in court on Thursday. Well, so the cycle is they don't come to court on Thursday, the warrant gets reissued, and it just goes in a big circle. And I think at the foundation of the thought process is, if I incarcerate somebody or I suspend their license, they lose their job. If they lose their job, they can't pay their fines. So the intent and the spirit behind it, I think, is to break the cycle and perhaps give somebody an opportunity to keep their employment with the hopes that they'll take care of the financial obligation, which is why I think that they're going to shift to maybe a civil collection process. And when you think about it, if you look in terms of resources, if we go and pick that individual up, that's 2 police officers that have to drive out to Wayne and pick them up and bring them to the Bergen County Jail. We can video them, so we cut that off, but if not, we have to then go pick them up, bring them into Ridgewood. So when you look at the price tag that's put on the resources that it drains, it might not be a bad idea in some cases. But I don't think it's going to impact on the enforcement side. It's going to impact on the court side.
Court side. So then is there some point in time now sort of like a hardship hearing where you find out whether or not, so instead of chasing this person around ahead of time, you're saying, look, we know you're not going to be able to pay.
Right.
So let's...
Which is what we do now, and
Right.
Judge Fund is very good at making someone understand that we don't want to issue a warrant for your arrest. So if you have a hard time paying that, you call the court, you come back in here, and we'll take a look at it. And when I say we've been successful and we're going to keep doing that, that's what I'm referring to. But if I have somebody that I've picked up and released 9 different times, what is that going to get us?
Right.
And I think that's really what's at the spirit that's behind this. And I think it'll probably be on a number of agendas at the league this year because it's caused, the league I think has taken a position on some of this. Of course, there's a push to share services, thinking that they could minimize the resource. And of course, we're in a great position here with our facility to be able to do that too. So, and when you think about it, there is some validity to that.
Yeah.
That if I'm going to send a police officer to various police departments 9 different times and we still don't have our fine money, what are we gaining? You know, what are we gaining?
Maria, and it's interesting because when you say you want to break, there's an effort to break that cycle, but you would think presumably the effort was to break a different cycle.
You would think.
I mean, it just, it can't be lost on anyone that you were the original,
right?
Whatever the original incarceration or anything was to break a different cycle. And so I don't know that, I guess I wonder if you had somebody, Wayne called and said, well, we have this person, bench warrant, whatever, owes money. What are those fines from? It can't be from the leaf ticket.
No, they're not.
Right.
No, they're
so
not.
For instance, what would those fines be?
It could be for driving while suspended. So the state goes back to, well, if we don't suspend them in the first place, then they don't get driving while suspended. Well, that doesn't really solve maybe why they were suspended in the first place, which I think goes back to the foundational issue that you brought up. But by the same token, if I have somebody with $900, now the judge can give them a credit of $200 a day for every day they spend in jail. Well, Judge Fund's position is that time has to be spent for Ridgewood. If you're spending time over there for Paramus because of something you did in Paramus, you're not going to get the credit from Ridgewood on your fines. So we will credit somebody. We just had somebody last week. They spent 4 days for us. They got a credit of $200 a day. So what we will say to them is you pay the balance or that credit goes away. And that has also been another successful technique that we've been able to use. But at the end of the day, we can't keep anybody in jail for more than 4 days. I have to let them loose. So am I going to take 2 police officers and send them someplace to go pick up a prisoner that I'm going to cut loose in 4 days? No. It becomes this resources versus, is this case going to get resolved if we do this? So the civil remedy, I don't know if that's a remedy. We'll see. They're telling us they will automate the process as opposed to what it is now, where you would have to pay a retainer to the village attorney to go chasing after fines, which is counterproductive. So they're telling us that this is going to be automated. They're going to write software that's going to do this, and all of a sudden the village will get a check from somebody. Because it would, if they seek a civil remedy, then they'll be able to garnish pay, etc. If they don't take their license, they'll be able to keep the job that will have the pay that we'll be able to garnish.
But then someone's taking a cut out of the penalty.
I don't know that.
Whatever.
I'm sure there's fees.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm sure
somebody's
there's
taking
fees. It's not a collection agency. We do have that in place now.
Right.
But I'm sure there's going to be fees associated with it. Filing fees at the very minimum, it would have to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it is some changes that we'll probably see, just to forewarn everybody.
Maybe they'll add a processing fee to the fine.
Yeah, we can't.
No, wait.
But I will say, we might be looking at being able to implement credit cards at no fee to the village. The state is actually going to step in and pass the legislation that they need to pass that fee on to the individual. So taking credit cards has been something that's been on the top of our list to do, but I think we're going to just sit back and punt a little bit and wait for the state to take, step in and take over.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
So we'll go on to the parking utility. And then trust funds after that.
Thanks.
So parking is 23 and trust funds is 25.
Mine's empty.
That was the only one.
So we'll start with parking utility.
To last year, we're looking at the same amount of PEOs for this year, and the other expenses are relatively flat as well. So if you have any questions or you see anything in there that looks unusual, I'd be glad to.
With the anticipated revenue, I guess you can't anticipate, obviously, revenue that we didn't have from the increases, because when did the increases go into effect? In early September?
They went into effect in September. I'm allowed to anticipate up to $156,000. That's what I collected in 18. I chose to keep the budget flat and accumulate that money so we can keep it for future debt service as we move down the road, because that was the intention of trying to get that rate increases in there. So I have, with the garage, the timing of the garage, I have no operating expenses I have to worry about now. So we're going to use 19 as bring some revenue in and put it aside.
Okay, and then 20 will be the first year that we have to make a bond payment for the garage?
I think it's 2 years, Steve, if I'm not mistaken.
21.
So we don't have any payment yet that would be charged for next year either.
Okay, so we could do the same thing next year.
That's correct.
And then how do you see the increases playing out? I guess based on you have like almost a third of a year, it's a little bit more than a quarter. So do you see those costs being able to cover the debt service for the garage?
Yes, and if you remember, we had Walker do the study. So we look at that as to when we need to structure the next increases depending on where the revenue stream is. So if we're doing good this year, we can postpone that. So we'll know better at the end of 19 as to how that's working.
Oh, good. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I just ask, you said you could anticipate 156? Is that what I understood?
Yes, if you look at page 1.
I'm looking at page 1.
See the realized through 2018?
Uh-huh.
The parking meter fees?
Yep.
That's $1,576,000.
Right.
So I could go up to $1,576,000 in 19 if I wanted to. I can anticipate that amount, and I choose not to because I don't have anything that I need to spend it on.
Oh, the 1,576.
Correct.
That's not what I understood you to say before, but that's okay.
Sorry.
Fine, good. I heard you say 156, so I thought you meant, I didn't know what that was. You did say 156, so I didn't know what it was. Okay.
I apologize.
So the 1,576,000 is what we had, so that's what we can anticipate.
That's correct. Yeah.
Got it. And you didn't because you thought better. Okay. That's my question. Okay.
And there, if you want to do capital.
Just one question.
Sure.
Bob, on the kiosks, I know that the expectation was that we would see, almost 20% improvement in the collection rate. How's that playing out so far?
Just finished the analysis this afternoon. I'll present it to you Wednesday.
Wednesday, okay.
We have to wait, it's like the suspense. Okay.
It's like watching, a good movie. You're going to have to wait.
The suspense is killing me.
I hope it's a good
good
movie.
ending.
Yeah, it's a
Do
good
we get to do alternate endings? Now it's like a big thing.
Okay. Actually, that was one of my questions, too, was on the kiosks. Okay. All right.
Well,
Capital for parking.
So tab 23 in your capital section. So I've put money in the capital budget for kiosks and cameras village-wide, assuming we want to continue the use of kiosks. And I also put $60,000 in for license plate reader that the PEOs will use, both on the street and also in the garage when that time comes.
And so the number for the kiosks, that would cover how many kiosks?
Probably another 10.
10? I was recently in, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I just have to say the chamber are not fans of the kiosks.
Yeah.
And they're, according to the chamber, they're getting lots and lots of complaints from shop goers, individuals going into restaurants and things like that, that the kiosks are too difficult to use, that if they're coming in and going out quickly, they're wasting money because they have to put in X amount. It's been a topic of our conversation the past 3 months, that the kiosks are a challenge.
So I was recently in Bethesda, Maryland, and I pulled up to this meter, and by the time I was getting my bag out, it was I think 2-hour limits, and when I went to pay, because it was solar powered, it looked like similar to the meters that we have here, just a little bigger, and I had the option of putting in money. I didn't have to use a payment system, credit card, but when I pulled up, it said that I could park for another hour and 56 minutes, because it started counting the time when I immediately pulled up, how much time I had to left to park.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty neat.
Yeah, the downside to that, and again, I've seen some of these presentations, is you have someone who has a child, who has to get the child out of the car, put into a carriage, whatever, and that's eating away at the time before they even put the money in. So it has a sensor on it and it reads it. And again, once you pull out, it stops and the new person comes in. So it's a benefit there, but there have been complaints about the users that have families that have, challenges to get in and out, or someone that's handicapped trying to get out there. They're being charged for time and haven't gotten out of the car yet.
Which I get, but you've also been sitting there taking a spot that somebody else can't use during the time.
Yeah, no, they're pretty neat. It's amazing what they can do. And they don't have to be, we talk about having sensors in the street,
right,
and the snow wouldn't work that way, but these are right into the meter head.
Yeah, hour 56, so you really calculated the last 4, I didn't mind, but it was just so sophisticated.
Now, did the meter also take credit cards?
And credit cards also,
yeah. They're not cheap. I can certainly look into the cost of, say, what a block would cost, because, again, we want to get rid of coins.
Right.
Do our best to do that. So,
although I'm sorry, I don't think this one took coins. I think it was either credit card or payment system. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, but if that is, that's great. But people will also want to use change.
Right.
It's just habits that they have.
Sure.
But part of this process with the kiosks and Calais is to looking at different, the alternatives. Where if we didn't want a kiosk and we want to stay with a meter, meters like that might be effective. Depends on what the cost is and how that works.
Well, that was the conversation, that if you go to it, like in California, each meter has the swipe or and I said, well, we want to get away from the coinage. I mean, that was the whole, listen, we've heard about
a million times.
The coinage 600,000 times. And I said, yeah, but a senior citizen's not going to want to use a swipe. And I was like, throw us a bone. I have used the kiosk. I've used Park Mobile. We've talked about Park Mobile, and I feel like we've done a lot, but I also understand that there might be a senior citizen who comes in who's got her change purse or his, change in his pocket and does not have the wherewithal to use a kiosk or a credit card. So they can still do that in certain areas, but if we're going to eliminate, if the plan is to get away from coinage, I think it's going to, for some people, be a challenge.
Well, the kiosks take coins, and I mean, I'm not, as far as technology goes, I'm not, on the cutting edge of anything. Like, I've never used Park Mobile, and forget about it. I never will use Park Mobile. It's there. I understand it's a great option for people who want to do that. But I mean, I've used the kiosks before. I put quarters in the kiosks. I've used a credit card in the kiosk, and I've used bills in the kiosk, and I've never had any kind of problems with them. So it's, there's kiosks all over New York City. It's not like Ridgewood is the only place with kiosks. I don't understand what the issue is, because you can still use change too. So it's not like we're limiting anybody. Like if there's an elderly person that doesn't want to use a credit card or something like that, they could still. I used the quarters too.
So what do you tie your horse, Mike? You put your horse
Where do I tie my horse? Right now, my horse is in the garage because it's salt season.
Well, so I'll give you an
the big
example though,
complaint-
because I went to the cottage lot and I use Park Mobile. So I sat in my car for a couple of minutes, I parked mobile, and I saw an elderly woman standing there, and she was staring at the sign, the kiosk sign. So I got out of my car and I said, "Can I help you?" And she was like, "I don't know what I'm supposed to do." And I said, "Well, there's a kiosk at the end, and you can go down." And she was like, "Just forget it, I'll get the ticket." And I was like, "No, you come down here, I'll show you how to use it." And she was like, "No, forget it." So, you know, she was standing there, because I did my Park Mobile, which takes me about a minute to do, and I was sitting there watching her, and literally she was just standing there looking at it like it was, you know, and it's only 20 feet to your right, so it's not like it's far away, but she, for whatever reason, didn't want to use it, didn't want to try to use it, didn't want to, and she just, literally, she just walked away.
So, I mean, maybe she does, maybe, you know, people might not understand that there's, you know, the option that has coins. Maybe they don't understand, maybe they think they have to do something that's more technical. But, you know, the one thing that you said earlier that certainly, you know, whether or not somebody's complaining that they go to get a cup of coffee in the kiosk and they have to do Park Mobile and they have to pay 35 cents to park for 10 minutes, but they also have the option to put in a coin. So it's not that it's the option doesn't exist.
No, what they're saying is they're pulling in, they usually would jump out, put their dime in, or put their quarter in, run in, wait on their line for their Dunkin' Donuts or whatever. Now they have to get out, walk down.
So it's more inconvenience.
It's inconvenient.
Right. So is that something, I mean, I don't know if it's just something where we have to add another kiosk or, you know.
No, they don't want to use the kiosk. That's what I'm saying. There is a population that doesn't want to use it, just like there's a population that doesn't want to use Park Mobile. So each chamber meeting, you know, it's like the running joke in the chamber meeting. As soon as we get to 9 o'clock, everybody runs outside to put their coins in, and I'm like, Park Mobile, you can do it right here. You can do it right here from the desk.
Yeah.
You know, but maybe the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm just, it's a suggestion, because I know we're on a completely different topic here, but it's all relative. I mean, maybe the Chamber of Commerce has the opportunity to do some education out in the field themselves and kind of lean in a little and assist, because everything we've done, every little thing that this village council has done, has been to fund a garage to make certain that that's there for them and that's something they wanted. So the kiosks was to recoup, was to make sure we didn't have any more quarter thefts, to minimize that exposure. The kiosk was to advance us the additional lost revenue of the 20% on the incoming gifting. I always like to call it gifting because I like park gifting. You know, so there were a number of initiatives that we took, but everything we did was with the end in sight was the garage.
They totally get that too. It just doesn't work. Like if your mom were going to come into town.
She doesn't drive. She's a Brooklyn girl. She never drive. No.
Okay.
Assuming
Assume she drove
Okay.
and had to get out and do this. There's a population that it's not something, this other woman would have rather gotten a ticket than to, and I don't know if it's that, I don't know what the reasoning was, because I was standing there as a councilwoman ready to help her, and she didn't want to have any part of it. And, you know, and I observed her, she was, and it's a simple sign.
Right.
So she was staring at it, you know, just looking at it, and
well, I was going to say that the chamber has been doing these videos on their website, which are really helpful for a lot of
yeah,
things.
they're great.
And I was about to say maybe they can do a video about the kiosk, but I think that the people who need to see the video are really
Are in
vocal.
awe.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
I
but
think
you
it's
know, and Heather will remember this, because I think probably Heather's the only one. When they were introducing Park Mobile, I always carried my little thing of coins, and I was like, I'll never use it. I have my quarters. I'm a quarter person. I'll never use it. And I remember Councilwoman Houck and I having a conversation. She was like, get over it, Bernie. You'll figure it out. And I was like, I'll never use it. And now I am the Park Mobile, like I try to tell everybody to do Park Mobile, Park Mobile, Park Mobile. It is so, you know, so
I said I would never use it, and I never have, but role of commitment.
Me too.
I am true to my word. But look, I mean, the one thing I will say, and I think it was, quite, eye-opening, was when we had the issue with Park Mobile and the money that was going out to them, that wasn't supposed to go to them. When we first got all of the data on that, the sheer number of users, but the amount that was being funneled through Park Mobile was astonishing, and I'm sure it's probably considerably higher now, 2.5 years later. So I think that, that maybe there'll be a handful of people that, still need to adapt, and sometimes that comes, slowly for folks, but I think that we have to continue moving forward, and unless they have some, really a serious solution, I mean, and the chamber.
Well, I don't think they're looking, I think they're looking for, they understand that we have kiosks, they understand that we have Park Mobile, and they understand that we're transitioning, that was something that I said, right. But they are countering that but there are lots of people who, for whatever reason, still want the little quarter,
So is it habitual, or more of the learning curve is steeper than they anticipated? Is it just people resistant to, this is the way I've been doing it, this is the way I want to continue to do it?
I don't know. I don't know.
I would think part of it is when you get out of your car and you have a meter, you're right there, and then you go. Now you have to walk 30, 40 feet to put money in it to come back to where you want. So, it's an inconvenience as far as they're concerned.
And not to be lost on the other inconvenience is that for years we've been advised, and everybody's keenly aware that, we have employees down in the CBD that wait until our PEOs are in the vicinity, and then everybody runs out and puts money in, and so there's a whole thing there, and it wouldn't surprise me if in fact that was also an issue, because it's much harder now to see the PEO and get out and now not just run right outside to your car and drop quarters in, but now run up to the kiosk and go through a whole process of input and information and license plates and anything else that needs to go into the kiosk. By the way, I haven't used one yet.
That's it, just because it's simple, it's just your license plate.
Yeah, no, I know. I know what it is. I mean, I've used kiosks in the past.
We made theft more inconvenient as well.
I do consider it a theft. I consider it a theft of, not a service, but a theft of, it is a theft of a service. It's a parking, it's a service, it's theft by deception, whatever you want to call it. I consider that if you're not going to put the money in, and you're taking up the space, and you're doing it deliberately, and just waiting and sitting there playing possum until somebody rolls up, I consider it a theft, but, no. I don't know what the answer is, but maybe something we have to continue to look at. Chalk on the tires.
But you remember what happened last time we did that.
But you know what? And I've given the chamber, and I've given you guys, in Sag Harbor, New York, the chalking of the tires works like a charm. I mean, they literally have those, they're like parking enforcement officers that walk back and forth, and it is, that you better get your car moved or you're getting a ticket.
We can do it, but what happened was they claimed that we were putting graffiti on their tires, and then they also came out with water bottles and sprayed it,
well, then we arrested
so that it came off.
Well, isn't that...
seriously, when they're doing stuff like that, that's talk about deception. Yeah.
But if somebody sprays, actually, if you're in one of our parking spaces, so you assume that you're in a village-owned parking space.
Right.
So you understand, it's kind of like when you leave the grocery store, certain stores like BJ's, they check your bag. So, it's kind of like you're open to that scrutiny if you decide that you're going to use that particular service. So if somebody comes along, our PEO, and they chalk a tire, and somebody then comes out and says, spritz, 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 then maybe we need something that in our code that says doing that has a real teeth. that
That shoots you a fine, sure.
not just a fine, but a big fine, like something really significant that says, look, if you're going to interfere with our parking enforcement, our legal right to enforce parking in our parking spaces, then maybe we put an ordinance on paper, and then we go forward, and I don't disagree. I mean, I think if we want to chalk tires, then let's chalk tires. Somebody's going to come out with a spray bottle or say we're graffitiing, tough luck, then don't park there. And if they come out with a spray bottle, make an ordinance that, whatever the maximum, because it is, interference. Back
Sorry,
to
we
the-
got off on that
Digress.
tangent.
It's a robust conversation, we like it.
Parking is still the biggest topic.
That's right.
Then we have trust funds.
So the tab 25 that you have is just a summary of what the trust activity was during the year. We have about $5.1 million that sit in trust that is cannot be used for anything other than a specific purpose that it's collected for. So there's about 17 different accounts that we have in here that we use. The biggest one is the escrow deposits that we hold for any type of developments that are going on. But basically it's cash in and out.
Is this on that open space trust fund?
Yep.
Let me just find that there. Here we go. So on the disbursements, was that turf? Is that what we did? Is that, okay. And that's that whole amount, or I didn't think it was that much?
Yeah.
And that on the COA development fees?
Yes.
Is that reflecting any of the developments in the CBD? So because I see on the receipts?
Those fees are generated once the assessor issues the permit for occupancy. So it's a combination for the COA fees.
So we haven't seen that yet?
Yeah, no, those are various, that's correct. Those are various fees collected over probably the last 10 years. For instance, Stop and Shop, when that was completed, they had to pay a COA fee, any new development.
Got it. Okay, that's good news then.
On the police outside duties, how do we end up with a balance? I mean, we assume that whatever comes in goes out.
Well, there usually is a lag between pay periods and when they disperse the total funds.
Okay, so that 298 could be,
Part payroll and also administration fees that will realize some of those funds.
but the pay period is how long usually?
2 weeks. Could go to 2 weeks to a month, depending on how quickly they submit the payroll documents, the overtime sheets to payroll.
Okay.
We didn't discuss buildings, so we are planning on carpeting this room, as well as the caucus room, as well as, there was one at the court,
Part of your room, your conference room?
Oh, yeah, the manager's conference room. Because the carpeting has been here since we moved in here in 2005, I believe it was. And this, in particular, first of all, it's too light for the use that this room gets, too light in color. So we are going to do something more...
Inverse maybe? Dark with the light dots?
So, and we're also doing tiled carpeting, right?
Yeah, so if
You can replace.
on the elevator, for example, we had that redone. It's all carpet tiles. So that way, if there's any spillage or anything else, you can just pull them up and fix it. So we're going to do the same thing in here. And the color that's in the elevator now is probably going to be closer to what you'd see in here. Blinds.
The other thing is blinds, because again, for example, I know we don't go into the police department very often, but a lot of their blinds are very old and not going up and down properly. So we are going to have to replace blinds in some offices. Some offices are fine, and we won't touch them, but I know for a fact that police, probably most of theirs do have to be replaced. Okay, so we didn't mention that in any of our other capital But, so the total capital, right now is proposed is,
7.1 million.
and that was down from a beginning number of like 14, right?
15 million.
15 million. So, and we did what we usually do, where we have all the department heads come in, and then they, first of all, we winnow it down, you know, Bob does, and then I do when we meet, the three of us meet with the department heads, and then the final step is for all the department heads to get together, say, okay, I can give this up for another year so that this person can have this, or we'll even say to one director, well, you can't have both of those, so what are you going to do? And then they say, okay, I'll give this one up to have this, and that's kind of what happened with the police department, where they wanted 3 Tahoes, and they decided, okay, we said, well, you could have Explorers, and you could get more, and they said, no, we want the Tahoes, so they said, okay, we'll go for 2 Tahoes instead of the 3. So,
Question regarding the carpet. Is there anything that we can do to help with the sound, with the type of carpeting, or no?
so, but, you know, I think what Dylan has come up with should work. There are going to be sound boards.
Yeah.
So, do you want to just come up and briefly say what's going to happen? Why not, since you're here?
Like a mime back there. He was.
I know. It'd be better if he told us. And I can have him come to a council meeting or mention it at a council meeting as well.
I didn't put myself on TV. Hello. All right. I got a quote from a co-op vendor that we dealt with our recording system. They came in, they measured the room, they made the recommendations, which are similar to the same ones I had drawn out. I didn't say a word to them. I let them come in and make everything. So what's going to happen is they're going to put soundboards up in this dome area to absorb the sound, because that's where we're losing a lot. And there's no insulation in any walls so it's just one big like ping pong table for sound. So they're going to put those up, and then they're changing some of the switches and equalizers in the back, and that's going to also compensate for the echo. And we're adding 2 more speakers into the back area to compensate for the where we're not getting sound for the audience. So we got a quote. I put it into the admin system. I should have a PO, and I'm going to arrange it for them to start installing on a Friday, Saturday, and Monday. This way it is complete before a council meeting or a planning board meeting.
Are they going to guarantee their work?
I hope. I mean, they said what they're doing is it's going to improve it. And they even made a couple of comments about things that were done originally that weren't done correctly.
So when we say improve, I mean, you could have a 100% improvement, 5% improvement. Improvement's kind of open-ended. It needs to correct, right? So I guess the question is, what happens if, we're not, it's really just a marginal improvement?
Then, well, right now they came way under budget, what I originally budgeted for. And this is all the same ideas that I was looking at to do to begin with. So I'm pretty confident that it's gonna help. Right now we can't turn up the volume of the mics because we get instant feedback. So the equipment they're putting in reduces that, or I should say almost pretty much eliminates it. It has filters in it, like digital filters, to remove any echoes. So we'll be able to turn the microphones up a lot more than what they are currently. So that will be one improvement, and then they're going to balance out all the audio for voice, so it carries better throughout the room. And then with the soundboard material up on the ceiling, that should stop a lot of the echoes that we currently hear in here. So I'm pretty confident that it's going to be a significant change.
Okay, so we've been through everything for tonight. Our next one, I know we have the library, we have Parks and Recreation, we have Graydon and Project Pride Community Center, Emergency Services, Emergency Management, and then the current fund revenues, and then headcount, overall budget, and then the wrap-up and setting of the tax rate. Again, our hope is that our plan is that we're introducing on March 13th at our public meeting. with the public hearing and adoption on April 10th. I'm thrilled that we're on schedule for that because we will actually have our budget in the prescribed time for the first time, I think, since I've been here. So and last year we were right on schedule, and then we had a big blizzard, but because we got it into the next meeting that was available, it counted. But this will really be in there. So just, I heard we might get some snow on Friday, so I'm just keeping my fingers crossed. We are starting at 5 o'clock that night, so, you know, and we'll go until we finish. And so we're getting near the end, and I thank you for your questions and your inquiries, and we'll see you on Wednesday at our work session.
Thanks. Motion to adjourn.
Now, I think
Oh.
you just have to ask for public
Public
comment.
comments, anybody?
Sorry.
Sir? Oh, okay. Thank you.
I didn't see the public to remind me.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Seen ghosts.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thanks.
Thank you. You know, the true test of the sound.
I know.